Hello, it is May the 3rd, 2022, and I have been tidying up, changing rooms around, bookshelves around, and I came across Harry Edwards' Life in Spirit. Now, this was published in 1976, and I had known about Harry Edwards. I read this book about 10 years ago, I think. This is a lovely, pristine copy, and it's hand-signed by him. And I'm really happy that I've got it. And then I was thinking, well, maybe it would be a really good idea to read this aloud. I don't know whether it has been read aloud. Usually I have much luck when I'm reading, spontaneously, but it seems my dog's asking for my attention. So I will just see to him in a minute, and then I shall continue reading Life in Spirit. Just a sec. I hear you. What's up? What's up? Here you go. I don't know why you're following me. There's nothing happening here. There we go. Yeah. Come on, man. And stop barking. Right. So, sorry about that. So, Life in Spirit. Sleeve note. This was originally £3. This is the story of John and Mary. Annie, John, Annie, Mary. Brother, sister, husband and wife, sweethearts, friends. The story of you and me, but with this difference. John and Mary have died and have entered into their new life in spirit. Harry Edwards, known throughout the world as our foremost spiritual healer and the author of many books on healing, has paused in his busy life to contemplate what the spirit world might really be like. The result of this deliberation is all here, in fascinating and intricate detail, as he describes various facets of spirit life as he envisages it, its architecture and how things are constructed, through the manipulation of spirit energies, how time and change is measured in spirit life, how travel is accomplished, and communication established. There are vivid descriptions of halls of learning, the animal kingdom, the nurseries of heaven, and so on, and his account of spirit concert as a galaxy of colors. Light, movement, and music has a breathless quality of beauty and inspiration. Needless to say, spiritual healing is well featured with scintillating observations upon the spirit signs whereby healings are accomplished. The story of John and Mary might be considered by some as pure fantasy, but as Harry Edwards himself says in the book, I am my severest critic, for I readily acknowledge that there need not be any truth whatsoever in the story of John and Mary. It may all be nothing but than the product of my imagination. How much of the narrative in his imagination is for the reader to assess? But as Edwards, the healer, becomes Edwards, the visionary, giving full rein to an amalgam of searching imagination, coupled with such vividly descriptive writing of life in spirit, which flowed freely without a word of preliminary preparation, indicates that it could not be anything other than spirit-inspired. Perhaps this is not surprising, for it is not generally known that in addition to his healership, Harry Edwards is a medium of exceptional caliber and perception, and in this book he reveals the finer qualities of a rare mediumship which draws apart the veil of that great spiritual heritage which awaits us all. Life in Spirit, with a guide for the development of mediumship. This is what he looked like. He looked like a nice guy, didn't he? Published by the Healer Publishing Company, Borrowlea, Sheer, Guildford, Surrey. So that's not too far away from me, and I lived quite close to there. dedicated to Ray and Joanne Branch as a token of my deepest regard and thankfulness for the loyalty and devotion to this sanctuary healing mission and to myself. Contents. Introduction. It is a very far cry from a piece of almost purposeless protoplasm floating in a primeval sea millions of years ago to a very purposeful sperm, one of several millions on any intercourse occasion, trying to fight its way along a hazardous journey to fulfill its destiny to fertilize a female egg. The story is still more amazing when one recalls that every one of the millions of sperm contains within it the chromosomes and genes, the seeds of inheritance, which will determine the nature and the character, down to the finest detail as to what color the hair or the eyes will be. Whether the new person will be tall or short, kind, gentle, or the reverse. And lastly, perhaps, whether the victorious Mr. Sperm contains an additional chromosome which will determine whether the coming child shall be male or female. This is a wonderful story, and as one delves deeper into the study of all that it implies, and that which will develop from it, we have a wonder of creation which renders to almost nothing human wit and wisdom. But this is not all. As this book proceeds, the endeavor will be made to establish firmly beyond dispute that man is not only a physical being, but is a spirit being as well. He is not only a member of this physical dimension, but equally a part of the dimension of spirit. So it is that when one marries these two dimensions together, it creates potentials for study that extend far, far beyond the most fertile human imagination. The purpose of this book is to go a little way, as far as we can, along that journey. It will be established that humans are akin to spirit in this life now, and once this can be accepted in the mind of the human family, then we shall see the solving of those age-old problems that have caused so much suffering, anguish, and poverty. Section 1, Chapter 1. Is there a spirit realm? One cannot give positive physical evidence of that which is beyond the domain of Figure's physical life. Our wonderful computer brain cannot receive and register information that is beyond its measure of acceptance. One cannot explain to a person totally blind from birth any color, for the simple reason that the brain has no knowledge of, nor can it appreciate a verbal description of that which is completely outside its capacity of registration. We shall not finally know whether there is a spirit realm until our time comes to leave this phase of life and enter into the spirit phase, should there be one. Thus there can be no positive demonstrable answer to this question, apart from logic and experience, which are factual, and I claim there is a great abundance of both of these experiences. We know our galaxy exists, and its immensity bewilders our conception of its space and time. Other galaxies can be discerned, and therefore we accept the fact that they exist as well. They all belong to the physical dimension. In this life, if we try to take one step out of our dimension of life, we cannot experience anything about it, for it is not of this world. A very wise doctor once appeared with an author on a television program when films were shown of psychic surgery as practiced in the Philippines. In these, the Filipino healer was able to make an incision with his fingers into the patient's body and so place his hands inside it, withdrawing a growth or some other fleshy substance. When the surgery was completed, the healer would take his hands away from the body and the aperture was seen to be healed over without any sign of it having been opened at all. There was no sign, and yet on the film the person was seen to be opened. There was blood, and the actual growth of whatever the offending substance was withdrawn. The fleshy substance was available for inspection. After this the wound healed up as if by magic. There was not even a seam in the skin where the opening had been. The doctor, observing this, said, "I have seen this, but I cannot believe it, because if I did, it would be counter to all the knowledge and experience I have in medicine and surgery during my lifetime. I dare not accept it. Let me instance a case in my own field of work, that of spirit healing. The patient has an affliction, and this could vary from a malignant tumor to a totally paralyzed limb, the total loss of sight or hearing, and so on, all of which have become completely incurable to medical science. The finest medical brain can do no more for the patient. Human wit is at an end. The patient is doomed to die or to live with his affliction throughout the rest of his life. Because of the hopelessness of the medical diagnosis, the patient is no longer receiving any medical treatment, apart possibly from unlimited pain-killing tablets. He then seeks help from a spiritual healer, with the result that his affliction is completely taken away from him and his full health is restored. There must be a reasoned process behind every state of change, and to enable one to appreciate the means by which the change in the patient takes place, it is necessary to consider some very definite and undeniable truths connected with changing states, whether of the mind or of matter. Every change which takes place, every movement in the state of matter, results from law-governed forces applied to the subject. There is no exception. We witness this in the evolution of matter, the causes of the stars, germination, birth, death, the atomic formation of an element, the operation of the known forces of electricity, gravity, and so on. Physical science is based upon the appreciation of certain laws. Otherwise, there would be chaos or scientific anarchy. This is a truth which cannot be denied. From this we shall study the further postulates upon which the healing of our incurable patients depend. The fundamental postulates. God created the perfect laws which govern life. The postulates which follow are dependent upon the fulfillment of these laws. Every change in the universe results from the application of law-governed forces. Nothing takes place by chance or without a reason. It is the operation of law-governed forces that induce change. For any state of change to be purposefully effected, intelligent direction is needed to administer the law-governed force to the subject. Example: man must direct the force of electricity to produce a given result within the laws which govern that force. The correct administering of any force requires intelligent direction. In spirit healing, the intelligent direction of a healing or other force originates from the spirit realm. A diversity of so-called incurable human ills, from mental sickness to cancer, from nervous breakdown to cataract, from blue babies to arthritis, are successfully treated by spiritual healing. This denotes that the directing intelligence is able to diagnose the cause of the affliction and to determine the correct character and strength of the healing force needed to remedy each given condition. In healing, the directing intelligence is able to ascertain the cause of the disease and knows how to administer the remedial force to induce a state of beneficial change within the patient. The laws. There are physical laws which control the material world. Order in spirit life implies there are spirit laws. The administrating of spirit healing force must conform to its laws, just as physical laws govern physical forces and medical treatment. The physical and spirit law combined come within the definition of the total law. No effort to produce any state of change is possible outside the limit of the total law. The intelligently directed forces emanate from a non-physical realm, but through cooperation between the transmitter and the receiver, such non-physical forces are transformed into their physical counterpart. Directed forces are definite forms of characterized energy, which can produce change in another form of characterized energy. We can now return to the patient, who is considered by human minds to be totally incurable, in order for that patient to have his trouble removed, the process must result from intelligently directed, purposeful energies in their correct strength and function to make the chemical change within the body of the incurable person, and so enable the cause and symptoms of the disease to be removed. Fundamentally, the lesson we learn from this is that there must be another source of intelligence to produce a given effect. And if that intelligence is not human, then where else can it come from, except from what we term as the dimension of spirit? Some people will not accept any evidence that there is a spirit world, and in the course of time they will enter into the spirit life. People demand for their personal proof. When through mediumship definite evidence is given of the living presence of a relative or friend who has left the physical life, others seek it in observing the materialization of a dear one who has passed into spirit. There is, however, such an abundance of evidence establishing communication between the spirit realm and ours that I need not dwell much further on the subject. If it is proved only once, then that establishes the truth. The gifts of the spirit. The linking with those who are enjoying spirit life is observed with the various gifts of the spirit, such as clairvoyance, clairaudience, physical phenomena with a special type of medium, receiving of information such as that which, for instance, was given with the discovery of an unknown symphony by Schubert. There was no previous evidence of the existence of this symphony. It was through the primitive use of the glass pointing out a message through letters of the alphabet that Schubert disclosed the existence of his unknown work. The search was made and carried on for considerable time without success until, again, through the use of the glass and letters on a number of occasions, precise information was given that it was deposited in the vaults of a Berlin museum. There was at first difficulty in finding the manuscript because the receipt of the symphony was not recorded as an entry. Once more the glass was used, and it was disclosed that the symphony was in a box with other items that were never registered. This information was given from the mind operating the glass. Sounds like looking glass. This information was given from the mind operating the glass. Eventually the box was discovered, and there was the symphony, quite unknown to any living person. It was subsequently broadcast by the famous BBC Orchestra. This is but one example of a communication from a spirit source disclosing knowledge that was known only to the spirit person concerned. There are also the gifts of artistry, of painting, of automatic writing, and here I refer to the book by David Duguid, D-U-G-U-I-D, Duguid, who was an unlettered shoe repairer who wrote the amazing narrative Hafed, Prince of Persia. There's also the evidence provided through spirit photography, which those who have passed into spirit life appear on photographs. There are the wonderful designs and paintings, which are inspired through intuition, and musical compositions bearing unquestionable resemblance to the work of the composer when in physical life. There are many instances of prophecies coming true, perhaps one of the most notable being that of the sinking of the Titanic. I can record 2 occasions when my life has been saved by spirit intervention. The most graphic one was when I was crossing in from a tram in Jamaica Road, Bermondsey, and not being able to see what was coming on the near side between the tram and the pavement. I was literally lifted and transported to the pavement in a flash of time, to the amazement of the bystanders waiting at the tram stop, while a fast-moving lorry was coming along on the near side and would have surely have killed me had it hit me. Perhaps last in the series of gifts of the spirit I would refer to is that of the ability of spirit control over matter, transporting an object from one place to another at amazing speed in a state of matter superior to the physical law, which ordinarily would have destroyed it through friction and contact. I have photographed the actual appearance of such an object, and this is shown in my book, the mediumship of Jack Weber. Thus, it can be taken as proven that there is communication between intelligences in spirit and human ones in present-day life. There's the Church of England's belief in the communion of saints as the basis of its theology. It may be that there are some who will not accept these facts as I have stated them, either through mental perversity or religious bias. No one can profitably argue with ignorance, so we will let them be. So that was chapter 1, and I will continue the next reading with chapter 2. Have a good Tuesday. Bye-bye.